A few days ago, I revealed something about Trump's executive order on Bitcoin that almost nobody noticed. I showed how it sets up a legal framework for both confiscation and revaluation, echoing the language of Roosevelt's 1933 gold seizure. I explained how the government could acquire Bitcoin, potentially revalue it to $1 million per coin, and use that increase to tackle $37 trillion in debt. That video exposed a hidden plan, but I wasn't telling you the full story. Because there's a second asset hidden in the same order, an asset the government has confiscated before, an asset they've revalued before. And if you think the Bitcoin plan is bold, wait until you see what's coming for gold. The target isn't $2,700 per ounce. It's not $5,000. The plan aims for $20,000 per ounce. And the blueprint for this move, already buried in Trump's executive order, the same order praised as pro-crypto, the same order that mentions gold 14 times, and grants the Treasury authority to revalue strategic assets. Here's the thing most people don't know. The U.S. government has officially valued its gold reserves at $42.22 per ounce for 52 years. Not $2,700, not $2,000, not even $100, just $42.22. The U.S. holds 8,133 tons of gold. That's about 261 million ounces. At the government's official price, the gold is worth just $11 billion. But at current market rates, that same gold is worth roughly $75 billion. That's nearly $694 billion in hidden value sitting in Fort Knox, West Point, and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, just waiting to be unlocked. You might think this is just accounting, but it's far from it. That gap makes a revaluation plan possible. The U.S. can legally change the gold price anytime. It's not dictated by supply and demand, it's set by law. Congress or the president has done it before. In 1934, the price jumped from $20.67 to $35 per ounce. In 1972, from $35 to $38. In 1973, from $38 to $42.22. Each time it was a simple legal act. And now, with $37 trillion in debt, the government could do it again. Here's the historical precedent. On April 5, 1933, Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, forcing Americans to turn in their gold within 30 days. Non-compliance meant prison or fines. Most Americans complied. They trusted the government. By January 1934, the Gold Reserve Act allowed the president to revalue gold. Overnight, the official price jumped 69% from $20.67 to $35 per ounce. The Treasury's gold value rose, and the dollar was devalued by 40% relative to gold, effectively erasing 40% of the national debt. Americans who surrendered their gold lost real wealth. Ownership remained illegal for decades. Now, let's look at Trump's executive order, titled Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology. It focuses on Bitcoin, but gold is mentioned 14 times, and the powers it grants, almost identical to the 1933 playbook. Section 2B authorizes the Treasury to manage strategic reserve assets, including gold. Section 3C allows the Treasury to establish valuation methods that reflect national security, not just market price. Section 4A gives authority to revalue assets for debt sustainability. Section 5D allows extraordinary measures, including mandatory acquisition from private holders, confiscation and revaluation, just like 1933, all spelled out. And why $20,000 per ounce? The number isn't random. The U.S. government holds 261 million ounces at $20,000 per ounce. That gold is worth $5.2 trillion. Add Bitcoin at $1 million per coin, and total strategic assets hit $6.2 trillion. Enough to claim the debt is backed by hard assets and stabilize the dollar enough to keep the system running. $20,000 is the precise figure that makes the math work. Not the market, but what the government needs. And when the U.S. sets the official price, other central banks will follow. It's a global reset waiting to happen. But revaluation alone doesn't give them more gold. The next step, how they plan to actually acquire it, is where it gets even more interesting. But here's the part almost everyone misses. Revaluing gold doesn't give the government more gold. They still hold the same 8,133 tons. Raising the official price from $42 to $20,000 boosts the paper value, not the ounces. So what happens if the government wants more of the real metal before the revaluation so they capture even bigger gains? That's where the playbook gets dark. And yes, the executive order already gives them the tools. Phase 1 begins with voluntary acquisition. It starts harmlessly. The Treasury launches a strategic gold reserve initiative, patriotic branding, slick marketing, commercials on Fox, CNN, CNBC, sell your gold to strengthen America's financial foundation. They offer market rates, maybe even a premium. Retirees cash out, collectors downsize, crypto-heavy investors rotate out. No force, no threats, just persuasion. The government quietly builds a few hundred extra tons. Phase 2 introduces mandatory disclosure. Next comes transparency regulation. If you own more than X ounces, maybe 50, maybe 100, you must report it. It's sold as anti-money laundering, anti-tax evasion, common sense oversight. Most people complying because not complying puts a target on your back. Now the government knows exactly who owns what. Phase 3 is tax pressure. Congress introduces a new levy, excess precious metal holdings tax, or an unrealized gains tax on gold, a 5% annual tax on large gold positions, Then the spark, a debt ceiling standoff, a treasury downgrade, a foreign liquidation of U.S. bonds, a sudden spike in interest rates. The dollar stumbles. Washington declares a national economic emergency. With emergency powers unlocked, the Treasury activates the clause buried inside the executive order, mandatory acquisition of strategic assets from private holders. You must turn in gold above a certain limit within 90 days. The government sets the price, maybe $3,500 per ounce when the market is screaming at $5,000. This time, non-compliance isn't a tax liability, it's a felony, asset seizure, bank account freezes. Up to 10 years in prison, just like 1933. Updated for 2027, most people comply out of fear. The government now controls several thousand additional tons. Phase 5 is the revaluation. After confiscation ends, the Treasury announces the new official price, $20,000 per ounce. Instantly, the government's gold skyrockets. Before, worth $11 billion on paper. After worth 5 to 7 trillion. Add in Bitcoin revaluation and suddenly Washington has 8 to 9 trillion in hard asset backing. On paper, the debt crisis is solved. But here's what actually happens to the public. As gold is pushed toward $20,000, the dollar collapses. If gold jumps from $2,700 to $20,000, the dollar loses approximately 86% of its value in gold terms. That destruction spills into everything. Food prices triple, energy prices explode, housing becomes impossible, wages lag far behind inflation, savings accounts evaporate, bondholders get wiped out, pensions crumble, retirees get destroyed. The government escapes its debt. The public pays the bill. The winners, the U.S. government, they vaporize $25 to 30 trillion of debt in real terms. Politicians, they avoid raising taxes or cutting social programs. The Federal Reserve, they regain control by backing the dollar with gold and Bitcoin. Early gold holders who don't comply if they hold gold offshore or hidden. Dollar savers, $100,000 becomes worth $14,000 in purchasing power. Bondholders paid back in destroyed dollars. Retirees, inflation, wrecks, fixed income. Middle-class workers, prices rise far faster than wages. Homeowners with variable rate debt rates skyrocket. Foreclosures surge. The timeline is clear. In 2025, infrastructure setup begins. Treasury working groups form, acquisition frameworks drafted, vaulting partnerships prepared. No announcements, just quiet preparation. In 2026, voluntary buys and reporting rules roll out. Government buys gold with premiums. Mandatory reporting rules introduced. Tax proposals targeting gold emerge. Smart money moves offshore now. In 2027, the crisis and confiscation strike. A trigger hits, emergency declared. Mandatory acquisition launches, a 90-day deadline. Threats of prosecution, thousands of tons flow into government hands. By 2027 to 2028 comes revaluation and fallout. The new official price, $20,000 per ounce. Gold skyrockets. The dollar collapses. Inflation erupts. Debt melts away in real terms. The government wins. The public loses. What can you do now? Move gold outside U.S. jurisdiction. Switzerland, Singapore, London. Allocated vaults. Prefer allocated bars with serial numbers. Avoid U.S. bank safe deposit boxes. Diversify into hard assets. BTC land, commodities, productive businesses. Reduce paper trails when legally possible. Watch for these warning signs. Gold, reporting rules. Metals, taxation proposals, national extraordinary measures, discussions. When those appear, the clock is already ticking. Trump's executive order wasn't just about Bitcoin. It quietly set the stage for gold acquisition, gold revaluation, gold-backed balance sheet repair. A 1933-style repeat with modern tools. Confiscate low, revalue high, erase the debt, crush the dollar, transfer wealth to the state. The script isn't new. It's the same playbook, only the dates have changed.